I've been meaning to do my Death Note review for quite some time now, but a lot of school altercations came up, and me and my dad had to move out of our house to a different home, and a lot of stuff got in the way, as well as I really wanted to rewatch the series, but I never really got around to it. So I'm doing my review now. Better late than never. Death Note can be described as a really fast-paced game of wits. It's really interesting to see the way the two main characters just constantly clash at each other, and you want to find out who's going to be on top, who's going to beat who, and you don't really know because the two main characters seem so evenly matched, and it's really difficult to just, one, to know who's going to win, at least, and two, you don't really know which side to root for, the protagonist or the antagonist, because they're both really good characters and they're both really smart. Not to mention the value on the series is incredibly high. It's had 3 live-action movies. Its 4th live-action movie is under development as of this recording in 2016. It's had an anime, a manga, and it's had a live-action television series as of last year. It's very difficult to go into all of this without further detail. So, my name is Eddie, and this is my personal review of Death Note. Our story takes place in the Kanto region of Japan, where our main protagonist, Light Yagami, is bored out of his mind. You see, Light is too smart. Light is way smarter than anyone in his high school, and he's bored. He knows the answer to every question. Anytime the teacher asks him to volunteer, he can answer the question like that. And he's just tired. He's tired of his routine human life. He looks out of his window during class one day and he notices a notebook falling from the sky. As weird as that sounds, that's what happens. After class, he decides to go and check it out, and he reads, and it says Death Note. And he says, what, like a book of death? That's ridiculous. He says it sounds like one of those chain letters or emails or texts that you get that's like, if you don't forward this, you're gonna die, you're gonna see a scary person within the next couple days or whatever. So he really didn't put much faith in it. But for some strange reason, he decides to take it home. This is the part where I guess I have to say, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen Death Note, you're missing out. You should go see it. Alright? Got it? Spoilers? Yes? Okay. He takes the book home, and he turns on his news, and to his surprise, there's a hostage situation happening. A guy has a gun, and he's holding a lot of people hostage. And so he decides, what the heck? I'll try out the Death Note. Why not? It's probably harmless. It can't be too much. Surprise, surprise. He follows the instructions accordingly, which is, if you write a person's name in this notebook, they will die. If the cause of death is not specified, they will simply die of a heart attack. So he decides to write down the bank robber's name after receiving the information from the news. And surprise, surprise, the bank robber ends up having a heart attack. After thinking to himself for a bit, he decides to go out into the public and try it again. So he goes out to a store and he notices a woman about to be sexually violated, and he decides, I'm going to step up and be the hero. So he writes the violator's name in the notebook, and take a wild guess what happens. So after the violator gets hit by a truck and dies, Light is convinced that the Death Note is real. So, after killing 2 people, Light decides, I'm glad this came into my hands, because if this book were to fall into the wrong hands, bad things could happen. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to kill every criminal on Earth with this notebook, and then I will become the god of the new world I will create. Compared to the 2 main characters, everyone else is a side character, and they don't really feel like they have that much weight, except for maybe one specific scene where it's all about that side character and how that side character saves the day. But in reality, there's two characters. The first one I'm going to talk about is our main protagonist, Light Yagami. Keep in mind, still spoilers. Got it? Cool. The one thing that I love about Death Note so much is the character development is really good. Light Yagami used to be a straight A, well, he's still a straight A student, but he used to be just a student who did nothing but get his grades done, get perfect scores, do his chores, and just be the perfect role model. But then he gets the Death Note, and the Death Note slowly drives him mad with power. And he becomes a completely different person from episode 1 to the finale. Light Yagami can be very simple. And the reason why I say he's simple is because it's so obvious what he's trying to do. For example, there's plenty of occasions where Light will just think to himself, this person's such a pain in the ass, I'm gonna kill them with the Death Note. And then they'll be out of my hair. And then he'll talk to the person and say, oh yeah, hi, we're friends, we're cool, yeah. And then he'll write that person's name in the Death Note. And the other character we get to talk about is the world's greatest detective, L. L is really, really weird. He sits with both feet at the bottom of his chair, like on his seat. He'll constantly be eating and just twiddling his thumbs and twiddling his feet. But the thing about L is he is the greatest detective alive. It's like if you take Sherlock Holmes and then you mix them with like every detective from every CSI, and they all just have a love child, and it's L. Since L isn't our main protagonist, he doesn't get as much character development. That being said, he does get a little. From the beginning of the show, he solved every case he's ever done. But throughout the show, he slowly begins to realize, I might not solve this case. I'm risking my life, and I don't know if I can complete this. And so he starts to doubt himself, and he starts to just wonder what he should do. And he doesn't really know 100%, but it's really cool to see him do what he can to the best of his ability. Now, there is one side character worth mentioning, and it's only because the side character is the reason why Light has the Death Note in the first place. Now, I'm talking about the Shinigami Ryuk. Ryuk is really, really cool. And the reason why is because he's essentially the Grim Reaper. And that's what he does, is he ends people's lives so that way he may lengthen his own. However, he got a hold of another Death Note, and like Light, he's very bored. In his little realm, in the Shinigami world, all the Shinigamis, all the other like Grim Reapers, all they do is sleep or gamble, and Ryuk's bored. He doesn't like it there. So much like Light, he's just like, I want to do something different. So he drops a Death Note into the human world, and he sees where it's going to go from there. Ryuk is also really funny, and not because he tries to be funny, only because the awkward situations that he puts himself into. He's not put in awkward situations, he just goes into them on his own. Not to mention, like, you ever have that laugh where you laugh only because you're nervous? Like, if you see someone get hurt, you're like, oh, and you like kind of giggle, but it's not because it's funny, it's because it's like a nervous laughter. Ryuk can be scary at some points. He can be horrifying, because sometimes you'll forget this being can kill any person it wants. And so it's just like, oh, and it's kind of makes you a little nervous, but in a good way. The animation looks rather fluid, especially in moments when Light would write names in the Death Note. It's just as simple as something like writing a name. There's even a moment, it's the famous potato chip moment. If you don't know what this is, you should look it up. It's a big joke that everyone's made it out of. But there's this really famous moment where just eating a potato chip is just as dramatic as killing someone. But the animation quality for it it's amazing. It's really good for something that came out almost 10 years ago. And then we have a moment to talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack is glorious. People often forget that the soundtrack is supposed to be its own thing. It's not just meant to just fill the silence, because then it really serves no other purpose. But the soundtrack does a really good job emphasizing the importance of certain moments, or making a moment a lot more cooler or more epic. It's really, really fantastic. I know that really wasn't much on the soundtrack and animation, but the thing is, it's good. It's really hard to explain. It doesn't just fill silence. It makes everything so much more impactful and just really hits you. Really does. So with all that information bundled together into one rather small video, I give Death Note a 9 out of 10. And I give it a watch recommendation because, like I said, really good. Soundtrack hits you, character development super great, but the ending threw me off a little. It threw off everyone I know. Like, everyone I know who's watched Death Note, the ending just didn't sit well. Like, it fits, like, the ending makes complete sense, but it leaves you thinking like, okay, yeah, the show was good, yeah, but okay, yeah, that ending, woo. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see other anime reviews, I got 3 up so far: Attack on Titan, Sword Art Online, and High School of the Dead. More anime reviews will be coming. It'll take some time. Once again, this is Eddie, signing off.